How does the restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral fit into the secular age? Is it, or will it be, a symbol of French or European resurgence? Or will it remain a beautiful relic, like the pyramids? So, what does this say about Christianity and European culture today? Join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
Reopened on December 7th, the Notre Dame Cathedral is one of the most iconic Catholic churches worldwide and a cornerstone of French history, architecture, and, as of late, reconstruction mastery. On April 15, 2019, Parisians watched in horror as the roof of the 860-year-old World Heritage Site was engulfed by fire. Neither the cathedral's wooden spire nor most of the wooden roof survived the element. The church's upper walls were also severely damaged by the fiery licks. Fortunately, the vaulted stone ceiling largely contained the burning roof as it collapsed, saving the interior from the inferno. It took over 5 hours to extinguish the flames. But against all odds, 2 days after the fire, French President Emmanuel Macron announced a 5-year deadline to restore the cathedral. Donations to support the Herculean task started pouring in from individuals, companies, and states worldwide in a symbolic cross-cultural effort. Led by chief architect Philippe Villeneuve, the restoration of Notre Dame involved some 2,000 craftspeople, 250 companies, and around 846 million euros in donations from 340,000 donors in 150 countries.
It's a difficult site because it requires a lot of people, a lot of resources and a lot of expertise. Everyone plays a very important role in this site, and it's a complex one because there's no room for error.
Step by step, the structure was stabilized, the iconic spire rebuilt from 1,000 pre-selected oak trees, the vaults and masonry restored with 1,300 cubic meters of limestone, and stained glass windows, sculptures, and artifacts were conserved. The universally human and cross-cultural spirit of the reconstruction effort was also felt during the opening ceremony itself. For instance, Prince Moulay Rachid represented his brother Mohammed VI, King of Morocco, a predominantly Muslim country. Among other political figures who attended the event were Polish President Andrzej Duda, US President-elect Donald Trump, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The reconstruction and the reopening ceremony are considered major political wins for French President Emmanuel Macron. Taking place during the Advent season, the event sent a message of hope, renewal, and anticipation in tune with the Christian wait for Christ's birth. Although the temple's shape has been brought back, the restoration works are not yet complete, as they are scheduled to continue through 2026.
I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, Justyna Napiórkowska, PhD, art historian and political scientist. Welcome to the programme. Second time. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
What are your immediate reactions when you saw how France, how the Catholic world had restored Notre Dame Cathedral? On this kind of aesthetic, personal reaction.
Yes, first of all, I would mention the notion which is very well connected to French viewpoint, the so-called exception culturelle, the cultural exception, something which makes French and their attitude towards both cultural heritage but also religious heritage very special. French people are able to celebrate this history, although the history of Notre Dame, like the history of France and the Republic, are quite complex in short. And,
to say the least.
And we could say that the cathedral is a kind of nearly incarnation of all those diversities within the French philosophy, political thinking, the way the world view in short. On
a purely visual level, is it a a new interior of a cathedral, or would old cathedrals, these cathedrals from this 12th, 13th centuries, would they have been more polychrome and multicoloured?
That's a good question, because somehow it is always the element of the debate while diverse works of conservation and reconstruction are being done, how to reconstruct, whether we should stick to the very original vision or idea. And this is the question which emerged in the history of the cathedral twice, because the recent renovations, which turned out into the history which the French would call the Renaissance, the rebirth of the cathedral, was somehow following a little bit the paths of the concepts of Eugène de Vieuc, and the famous reconstruction, which took place in the 19th century, and which resulted not only in consolidation of the concepts of how to deal with historical and religious heritage, but also created lots of questions. And somehow, what happened in 19th century with this famous architect Eugène Viollet-le-Duc was also the question of how to somehow adapt the cultural heritage into the modern times. So nowadays, in the current reconstruction, I would say that it's a minimal one, because somehow it resulted in renovating the interiors, keeping as much as possible of the historical heritage, something which is really striking when you enter the cathedral. I remember my numerous visits to the cathedral, and I was always struck by this feeling of entering into quite a dark space.
Yes.
We were used to this cathedral, which
centuries of candles and such,
covered with the time. And now we enter, after this rebirth, we are entering a very luminous space, which somehow coincides also with the original idea of the Gothic architecture, as the very idea of Gothic would consist of making the light enter into the building. So the inside of the temple, the inside of the cathedral, of the church, would be the space of light, the space of safety, also some kind of protected area, something which is also seen with the external decorations, which sometimes includes different types of masks, which sometimes are quite fearful and which symbolize the external dangerous world.
The gargoyles of the exterior. Yes.
So we enter into this glorious interior, very luminous and I believe very beautiful. In fact, I will have opportunity to enter the cathedral in a couple of days, just in the first days of January, so I'm looking forward this moment, which will be for me also a kind of a spiritual meeting or encounter from different perspectives, because of course there is the religious perspective, but also there is this capacity to enter the building, the cultural heritage that we saw on a brink of total destruction. I mean, the images of the burning cathedral are something which are now shaping our perception of the fragility of this monument, at the end being on the list of the UNESCO.
Yes, we saw the faithful praying, giving a spiritual dimension to this disaster that was unfolding before us. What's the effect, or in your opinion, on the spiritual aspect of the spiritual repercussions, the spiritual impact of this new cathedral? It's a very majestic, awe-inspiring, your eyes are drawn up to heaven and God, all that sort of stuff. Would you say that's going to be a lasting thing, or do you hope it's a lasting thing, or is it just for today?
I strongly believe that cathedral will keep those diverse layers. In a way, it dialogues with the contemporary public, both religious and secular. As there was a huge debate in France concerning, for example, ticketing the entrance fee for the cathedral. At the end, we know that it will be open as it was before the fire, so it will be free for entrance for different purposes, both for tourists and for those who enter for religious purposes. And somehow it remains the very heart, not only of France, of Paris, of the European civilization, I believe, on this island, Ile de la Cité, which is the very heart of the Frenchness, I would say. So we will have the cathedral, which keeps a little bit the older model that we were used to in the past years, as an open sacral building. But at the same time, it showcases probably the change that the religious hierarchy is dealing with, because we saw a lot of modern ideas entering the new cathedral. And again, it dialogues a little bit with the original building back in 12th century, when the cornerstone was put for the new cathedral on the basis of an older church. And Notre Dame, from the very beginning, was the idea of modernization, and we saw it in the visual field also. Yes, with some vestments, for example, the very modern, designed by a very good designer. Also, the small architecture, so the elements of needed for the liturgical purposes, which are extremely minimalist and extremely aesthetic, I would say. So somehow they coincide with the new need of people of faith who do not need the church of abundance. They need the church of which would rather remain more discreet, I would say, but at the same time somehow empowering. This visual language is very strong, and I really think that all those French designers, those 2,000 people who were involved in the work of reconstruction and who are a little bit the heroes of nowadays France, made a huge work of understanding of what is expected.
It's the best that the human being, the human artist can show, isn't it?
Exactly, and somehow construct the bridges between the past, which is really respected in the contemporary version of the Notre Dame, and the future. So not only the present. Somehow we are very much between the past and the future.
A final question to you, but it's probably an unfair one. We have to mix politics into religion. But how do you visualize? How do you evaluate the possible political impact of this event?
It was for sure a very good event for President Macron, one of the quite few success stories that he could share at the very moment when he really needed it, at the moment of political turmoil. And somehow the cathedral was always in the very center of the political turmoil also. If we think about the French Revolution, when the sculptures from the facade were destroyed by the revolutionaries who misinterpreted their meaning, and somehow they created the so-called temple of the reason inside of the cathedral.
The supreme being and reason. So that's all we have time for today. Do join us next time for How We Got Here.